Hello and welcome back to the GSD Show. It is your host, Mike Arce, here to bring you another episode packed with insights and inspiration from the best in the business. And today we've got a special treat for all of you who thrive on cutting-edge digital marketing strategies. Joining us today is none other than Nicholas Kusmich, the visionary founder of H2H Media Group. Nicholas isn't just good at what he does, he's a titan in the digital advertising space, renowned for delivering some of the highest ROIs ever seen in the industry. And we're talking staggering highs of up to 30,973%. But that's just the tip of the iceberg. Nicholas has been the secret weapon for A-list clients, from top thought leaders to New York Times best-selling authors and the fastest growing companies recognized in the Inc. 500 list. He's a maestro of marketing, having generated an outstanding $600 million in revenue. And here's the kicker: he's done it all by crafting ad campaigns that are irresistibly effective and ditching the traditional funnel approach for something much more dynamic. So if you're ready to get the lowdown on creating high impact, high return advertising campaigns that do not follow the usual playbook, well, you're in the right place. Nicholas, a huge welcome to the GSD Show.
Mike, thank you so much for having me. And man, just hearing that introduction makes me feel really good, probably better than I should about myself. But thank you for the awesome introduction.
I love it. I love it. Hey, full transparency for the audience. Can we just share what happened?
Absolutely.
We're like 8 minutes into this in a non-recorded session, and in the middle of Nicholas saying something awesome, I'm like, in my head, I'm thinking, I'm so glad I'm recording this for me. And then I looked up and it wasn't recording. So we just warmed up really, really well.
Yeah. Take two.
The good news is, I will say this: sometimes I'm 8-10 minutes into a podcast and I'm like, I don't know if I should have had this guest on. I'm already glad. Before all right. So Nicholas, let's dive in. You're clearly one of the best. You've been on. I had a podcast a while back called The GOAT Show, which, with full transparency, was just to be able to make contact with people that I wanted to get to know better. You were one of those people that were qualified to be on The GOAT Show. People that were arguably the greatest of all time at what they did. And for you, it was digital advertising. I heard such great things about you, and I've started following, watching your videos. I was like, okay, this guy really knows what he's talking about. And if you remember that conversation, we talked about a lot of the old school stuff. Like, both of us followed the Claude Hopkins and all the guys that, like, the Ogilvies that people don't even know about today, but they're the ones that started it all.
Yes.
And recently you've started talking about a few new things. And one of the things I really, really want to talk more about, because I agree with it, is this anti-funnel approach. And the word funnel has become like a key word for most people. Even the amateurs know funnel in marketing. Now, funnel's been around for a long time.
Yeah.
However, over the last like 10, 12 years, funnels, even like the regular amateurs in advertising, understand what a funnel is. There's companies built with the name funnel in their company.
Right.
So I want to talk to you a little bit about that. Nick, when you talk about anti-funnel approach, what does that mean to you? And why are we against the funnel?
Yeah, I love the question. And it is my mission in life to get everybody against the funnel. No, not really. But here's the idea. Like, I looked at this concept of the funnel, and I don't know why anyone has not questioned the idea. Now, if you're watching by video, I'm holding funnel. I have a bunch of funnels on my desk just to simply prove a point. But let's start with the very metaphor of the funnel. Like, if you go out there, and again, I think the reason why most people don't actually think about it is because no one's actually ever used a real funnel in life. But here's what we were pitched at some point: that you have this big funnel, you throw leads in at the top, the funnel is sifting and sorting through that, and on the bottom, it spits out your best prospects who ends up being your customer. Great. Metaphorically, sounds beautiful. In actuality, that's not how funnels work. And here's the point. Like, I took one of these funnels, I brought it to my hot tub with my children, and I took a mug in the other hand, and I scooped up the mug and I put water into the top of the funnel. And Mike, guess what came out the bottom? 100% of what I put into the top. Now, that's not what we're told. We're told funnel sift and sort and bring out only the best on the bottom. So the metaphor in and of itself is broken. But here are the three main things that I actually dislike about funnels and why I think it could be one of the worst things that people have told us in the marketing industry. Here's the first thing: speed. So if I took that cup and I poured the water into the top, which I did, right? If I just poured the water upside down from that mug, boom, the water comes out fast, no problem. We wouldn't expect any different. Now, when I take that same cup of water and I put it into the top of the funnel, does the funnel speed up or does it slow down the flow of the water? It actually slows down the flow of the water. Now, I don't know about you, but if I have a prospect who wants to work with me, the last thing I want to do is slow down the process from lead to conversion. I want to speed that up as fast as humanly possible. So just from the speed category, I think funnels are silly and they get in the way. But the second thing I noticed is the complexity of funnels. Now, what do I mean by that? The problem is a traditional funnel says, hey, we have to start with a gated opt-in. In other words, I will give you my name and my email address in order to get some information. And then we put anywhere from 3 to 33 touch points in between the prospect and the ability to buy something from us.
Right.
Now, here's the problem with each step of resistance point. Every time we enter a resistance point into a process between a prospect and ourselves, the illusion is that we're nurturing them in order for them to make a sale. But in reality, funnels are like speed bumps to supercars. They just simply slow down the process. So think about a traditional webinar funnel, right? You get a whole bunch of people to register for the webinar. Great. But how many of those people show up to the webinar? Approximately 20%. Great. Out of the 20% who showed up, how many of them stayed to the pitch or the offer? Another maybe 20%. Now, those who see the pitch, how many of those actually take the action to, let's say, schedule a call to talk with one of our salespeople? Let's say if you're really good, 5 or 6%. Great. Now, of those people who booked a call, how many people showed up? Okay, maybe 50%. Of those, how many people actually, enrolled? If your sales team is good, maybe 30%. So we went from having a ton of people who are interested in our topic matter to only a small percentage of people who ever actually get to a conversation to enroll in what we do. I call that lead leakage, and I call that a travesty. Like, could you imagine us spending money generating leads only to have a tiny percent of them get through to the end? Like, it's absolutely ridiculous. And what I tell people is, like, I want you to imagine with me that you have an emergency. You got to get to the hospital as fast as humanly possible. So you have two options to get there. Option one, 1971 Ford Pinto to go through a bunch of windy streets that are covered in speed bumps. Option two, Ferrari 488 Pista, direct beeline straightaway, no speed limit to be able to get to the hospital. Which would you prefer? Now, obviously, that's a silly question. Everyone's going to prefer the Ferrari to get there. But I want you to think about it and take this metaphor a step further. Let's say that your prospect has an emergency. They need a problem that needs solving. You are the hospital. Your product and or service is the thing that's going to solve that problem for them. And you have the ability to control their way to get to you. And yet everyone out there is like, yeah, let's give them a 1971, Ford Pinto with a bunch of speed bumps and a windy street, when you have the ability to hand them the keys to a Ferrari and say, no speed limit, beeline straightaway, straight to my solution. Which would you choose? And so the idea again here is the complexity is, as you have complexity, you have two problems. One, you have lead leakage that happens between start to finish. And secondly, the amount of effort, like when you look at a traditional funnel on the internet, like a breakdown of it, to me, that looks like something taken out of a quantum physics books that's teaching string theory. Like the amount of connections and steps and matrices and this and that, I'm a simple dude. That hurts my brain. I'm like, no, thank you. No, thanks. But here's the third thing. So we talked about speed. We talked about complexity. The third thing that I have an issue with, and this is probably the most important thing, is that funnels actually attract the worst type of prospect and repel the best type of prospect. And here's what I've come to understand. Every prospect out there will fall into what I call two categories. One is an info seeker or an information seeker. The second one is a solution seeker. Now, let's just talk vaguely or quickly about the differences between the two. An information seeker is just that. Someone who's perpetually seeking more information. They get these weird dopamine hits every time they attend a webinar, read a book, buy a thing, go to a conference, whatever. Now, the interesting thing about the information seeker is that they're not asking who can help me. They're asking, how can I get information to help myself? They're looking for slow solutions. Most of them are not looking to buy anything because they're just looking to do it themselves. How do I figure out how to do it themselves? So, which is why they opt in from one funnel to the next funnel to the next funnel, happily giving their information to get more information. And here's the clincher. They have got more time than money. They're not looking to buy anything. And so when they go through, quote unquote, our funnels, what happens? If we convert 1 to 3% of them, we celebrate. We're like, oh, look at our process. 1 to 3% of them converted. When I hear 1 to 3%, I'm like, damn, that means something's wrong with the process, especially in my world in paid acquisition, where if I'm only converting 3%, I'm not a happy camper. Now let's talk about the other person, a solution seeker. A solution seeker actually values time more than they do money. So when they see a funnel, they're like, I know what that is. You're just going to put me through a series of things, capture my email, spam the hell out of me with your email, invite me to 1,000,001 webinars in order to sell me the thing. Not interested. No thanks. So they have more money than they do time. Price is never an objection for them. It's more so risk aversion. So they're like, hey, I can pay for whatever you want. But here's the key. They are looking to answer the question, who can help me, rather than how can I help myself? It's the age-old Dean Jackson question, who, not how. And so if you think about those two things, what does a funnel attract? The information seeker. Right. 99% of the funnels out there are attracting the person who's like, I don't really want to pay for a solution. I'm just looking for more information. The reason you know this is because most of our funnels start with, let me teach you how to do something. Solution seekers like me, and probably like you, Mike, I don't give a shit about how to do anything. I want to hire the person who can do that for me because it's going to be a way better use of my time. I know myself. I'm not going to take a course. I'm not going to go through programs. I either want to hire a coach or hire an agency or whatever it is to actually perform the task that I know that I don't have the ability to perform. So if that's the case, why are we creating funnels to attract the worst type of prospect who don't want to buy from us, who take a long, ultra long time to convert, who have price objections? And then when they do enter into our world, they're the ones who give our customer service the biggest headache anyways. My suggestion is focus on the solution seeker like me, who's ready to take it. And I'll give you one example and then I'll stop talking. But I was scrolling through Instagram the other day and I saw this great ad, like killer. This dude nailed the ad video, like very few things I've ever seen. And I think it was for some sort of productivity thing. And he hit all the psychological triggers. I'm like, damn, I don't know what this is, but if this thing costs $2,000 or less, I'm going to buy it. No questions asked. It sounds great. And what the hell, let's go for it. So I saw the ad, I clicked on the ad, and guess where it took me? To a webinar registration page. Motherfucker. I was like, hell no, you just lost the sale. Right. But if you think about that, how many of people are like me and you who just say, I don't want the marketing shenanigans. I don't need 1,000,001 emails sent to me. I don't want to attend a 90-minute webinar or watch a 45-minute VSL. I don't need any of that. Do you have a solution that can solve my problem? Yes or no? Yes. Great. Let's hop on a call and discuss if we have a fit. And if you could mitigate the risk for me moving forward, then I'm all in. And so that is what I would just want to challenge people to think. I'm not saying funnels are bad or terrible. If you want to go after the information seeker and convert them over, great, but don't ignore your best prospect who's a solution seeker, because they ain't going to go through that process.
Oh, it's so true, man. I mean, I can't tell you the last time I sat through a webinar. I can't even tell you the last time I registered for a webinar.
Yes, me too.
But this year alone, I've invested over, I think we just did the math, it was like 180 some grand on people that can get things done for us. So
yes,
we're investing like a bunch of money into somebody that can like take our company and add a ton of AI to it. I don't know how to do it. I know what I wanted to do. And actually, I even know more now because she was able to make me aware of things I wasn't even thinking about. So she woke me up. I'm like, great. Yeah, let's get all that done. Yes. And then same thing. Internally, we had all these systems for Asana. We wanted to get done. So things just happen automatically and they integrate with other things. And I knew I wanted it. And I knew this guy was like, I could do it. It's 18 grand. And I'm like, because to build this is going to take me so much more time to even begin the process of learning it. my fear is outdated by the time I figure it out anyway. So
That's just it. Exactly.
yeah, so you're right. I've never gone through it, and my best clients are ones that appreciate time. They show up to the stuff. They find a way to get their team engaged on stuff, nuts and bolts. And they make the decisions a lot faster. The
Yep.
people that take like 9 weeks to make a decision with us, they're usually the ones that are the biggest headaches. And the one call closes, they're usually the ones that are like the best clients.
100%. And again, the more we talk about it, the more I think people realize that those people exist. And I want to tell everyone that every niche in every market has people like that in their industry that exist. And yet, because of this marketing funnel shenanigans that we've been taught forever, we just ignore those prospects. And they're the best ones, and they move the fastest, and they pay the most, and they make the most amount. So all I'm suggesting is if you sell high ticket, particularly if you sell high ticket, if you are just using traditional funnels to be able to bring people into your world, you're losing out on incredible amounts of opportunity in business.
Now, I know that, like, let's say in brick and mortar, you take like a gym. Gym does
Sure.
stuff like this as well, right? They got an
Sure.
ad out. That ad will take them to a landing page. That landing page will take them to a thank you page, and there's an email drip system. The goal is to get them scheduled. How would you shorten that for like a brick and mortar company like a gym?
Yeah, I love the question. And the easiest way to explain it for any company is if you are familiar with a traditional funnel, what is the starting point and what is the end point? Right. So in a gym model, let's say the end point is to get someone to come in for a consultation, a trial, whatever the offer is, it doesn't even matter. That's the offer, right? So all I'm saying is, if you know that start point is an ad and the end point is to get them to come in, just erase everything you think you need to put in between that process to get them there, and come up with a nuanced way to offer this thing right out of the gate. Right. And here's the biggest problem that I find people face is that we're so indoctrinated. Like, one of the biggest myths that I believe that are occurring in the marketplace is that leads need to be nurtured before they buy. That is a fundamental belief that is out there. And it's true. Some leads need to be nurtured before they buy. But what that doesn't state is that a lot of leads do not need to be nurtured before they buy. If you can present a compelling enough offer in front of them, they're going to transact whether or not you nurture them. So I just want people to realize that if we can eliminate all the resistance points in between a starting point and a finishing point. And remember, again, here's the nuance. Most people, because we're so indoctrinated and so ingrained in this, use information type languaging to try to speak to a solution seeker. That languaging doesn't work. So if the landing page says, let me show, let's say it's a gym owner, who knows, a lead magnet could be something like, let me show you how to do bicep curls or deadlifts properly. And then you get them to opt in and you try and get them into your gym or whatever. That languaging of how to is not important for the solution seeker. The solution seeker is like, I need a gym. I need a valid trainer. I need someone who's going to help me accomplish my X results. And so our languaging on that page, if that's what we're geared to, has to speak to all of those points. It also has to mitigate the risk, because here's an actual reality for a solution seeker. A solution seeker doesn't have a price objection, but they are adverse to risk. So we have to be able to say that if you're going to invest in us, that we're going to mitigate that risk for you. So if you can say, I've got authority, I've got credibility, I know your problem, I have a solution, and I can mitigate the risk, that solution seeker will move forward regardless of what it is. So again, going back to the gym thing, if you just had a page that literally showed your credibility and authority, showed that you have a system that is different, we could talk about what I call category 1 positioning, but you have a system or an approach that is different from everybody else, and you mitigate the risk, that person will just be like, okay, how do I sign up for my first thing? Rather than going through the hoopla of, 1,000,001 resistance points.
You know what the funny thing is, so that takes work, right? But it doesn't take as much work as most people think. It just takes new types of work.
Yes.
I actually have quite a few clients now that have taken my advice on this one approach. Much more have not, because it takes extra different kinds of work. And what that is collecting data that validates your claims. And this way you can actually place them. So for example, Nick, I don't know what your goal is right now. You look pretty lean. I'm guessing it's not fat loss. It might be, if anything, like energy, endurance, or maybe you want to gain more muscle. I have no idea, right?
Yeah.
Let's say it was gain more muscle. And let's say you saw at my gym, I have a stat that says 94% of the people that join this gym get 50% or more stronger in less than 90 days. Right? Like now the thing is, like, how do you measure that? Yeah, people that are like, but the truth is, look, if someone comes to you and they could only do 12 push-ups on day one, and now you can get them to do 18 by day 90. If they could only hold a wall sit for 60 seconds and they could hold it for 90 seconds, if they can only do 40 sit-ups and now they can do 60 sit-ups, you can justify based on how you measure strength and your baseline. The 94% of our members get more than 50% stronger inside of a 90-day period.
Yeah.
But I measure that though, right? And that's extra work, but man, like what value you can get from that?
Well, two things to say about that. One, is it extra work? Yes, it's a little extra research, but is it really that much extra work than putting in 14 steps in a funnel anyways, where you've got to come up with content and all this weird shit about showing how you do stuff? Like
following up with leads over and over and over and over.
Exactly. So let's define more work. Yeah, it's a little more thinking work, but you'd be good to have those stats even if you had a traditional funnel anyways. But here's the second thing, and I love what you said in such a great example. Now, when I talk about risk mitigation, so perfect. If I come to that site and I recognize, Jesus, okay, so 96% of people get 50% stronger within 90 days of working out, and my goal was strength gain, I'd be like, I'm in. But here's the clincher. If you added risk mitigation to that offer that basically said, if in 90 days you are not 50% stronger measured from day 1 to day 90, we'll give you 100% of your money back for everything you invested into our gym.
Yeah, of course. Easy.
You win 100% of the time. You win.
Right.
Right. So now people are scared of, why would I do that? How can I do that? How can I justify that? Like, if you are questioning your ability to perform that task anyways, then you're not confident that you can actually get them the result. But if you can get them the result, why wouldn't you throw that offer out there and mitigate the risk for the individual so much? So like, I'm a classic example of that, where let's say strength or muscle gain was my goal, and I saw a gym right on that, an ad, and then a page that offered that exact thing to me. Right. And all they said is, look, if you don't gain 50% strength gains in 90 days, you don't pay. I would sign up faster than anything else I could imagine.
Right.
Because I don't need all the Here's a great example actually of this. And I'm just a sucker for this kind of stuff, but I want to prove that there's suckers like me out there all over the place. I was watching YouTube. I don't know what I was watching. So I guess it was an interview or something. And this little thing pops up in the corner that says, why working out is the worst thing you could do for strength, or something like that. And I'm like, oh, I don't know what the hell's going on here. I work out 6 days a week. Don't you be saying that, right? Which would be almost the equivalent of me saying, like, why funnels suck and you shouldn't use them in your business is a great catcher. And then I went to the site, and it was literally just like this casual interview of this guy who was trying to push resistance band training. And there's some great science behind it. I don't know if it's true. I don't know the science, but the idea is like, you are stronger at the furthest end of your pushing exercises than you are at the beginning. Right. And so this is why you see like these dudes who put chains on their barbells when they're doing chest press or whatever. It's because you're stronger at the furthest part than you are at the closest part. So resistance bands, the benefit of them is they get harder the further you push out. So you're working the end range of your exercise. And I'm like, you know what? That kind of makes sense. I dig it. There's some science there. And it was literally a 10-minute interview where this guy was talking to a reporter about his system, and he sold $1,000 resistance band home training set. Well, Mike, guess what you think I did?
Got it.
I bought the damn thing after 6 minutes of watching a stupid video. Right. But the point is, I'm a solution seeker. He made a good point. He showed a interesting concept. He backed it with proof, just like you're talking about the gym owner. And there's a risk reversal guarantee where if you don't think it happened or you don't like it, within 45 days, I think I can return the whole system and get all my money back.
You're not sending that thing back. I'm
probably not sending it back. I haven't even used it yet, but I'm not sending it back.
Right.
But the point is, like, I just want people to understand, like, why are we overcomplicating the buying process for a solution seeker who just says, I want the damn thing and I want it now. Get out of my way. Let me just get the thing. Right. And there's just multiple examples of people just ignoring that reality. And again, it's costing them some good opportunities.
Right. And like you said, and that's why I wanted to emphasize, it's not more work, it's less work. It's just different work. Right. And people don't like different. They just want what they're doing to work better.
Yes.
and you're going to have people that are like, oh, well, biggest thing is weight loss, not muscle gain. Well, great. You can do the same thing, right? Like
same thing.
You could
Doesn't
say,
matter.
So the average, I think obesity is like 30%, right? Like that's where you consider somebody obese, at 30% body fat. And you go, okay, great. We can help you reduce your body fat percentage by 15% inside of the next 90 days. Now, by 15% is not going from 30 to 15.
Right.
It's going from 30 to 25.5,
right? Right.
50% of 30% would be 4.5%. And
right.
So as long as you get somebody down to 25.5, which by the way is good progress in 90 days, that's good.
Absolutely.
The person that let themselves go to 30, right? So, and we can see trends, but you can do the guarantee. So you can do the same thing with flexibility. You can do the same thing with energy. You can do the same thing with a lot of things. You just got to be creative in the way that you measure things so that you can report the data accurately.
Yeah.
Awesome. And some of the people that we followed in the past, Nick, some of the OGs, they're big on data. They feel like the biggest competitive advantage you can have is to have more data than the other guys.
Well, there's 100%. I think people are too lazy to do the data, which is unfortunate. But that's why, like, on the other side, how hard is it to be better than your competitor? Like, it takes an extra hour of research, bloody hell, to like wipe them off the planet if you wanted to, because you've done the work for the data. But there's one other thing that I will say that I think is important that makes this whole process 100 times easier. And it's what we call category 1 positioning. And without getting too deep into it, it's just this recognition of 76% of every market is dominated by 1 or 2 leaders in the space. Okay, let me just give you an example. If I were to say on-demand streaming, there is one company who should come top of mind, Netflix. If I were to say ride sharing, there's one company that automatically rises to the top, it's Uber. Now, is there Lyft and all this other stuff? Of course there is, but they're competing for the bottom 24%. So thousands of people in every industry are competing for the bottom 24%, while 1 or 2 leaders in every category own 76% of the market share. So the question then becomes is, rather than going into marketplaces and competing for 24% of the market share, what if you could create a category and be the leader in that space? In fact, what I say is, he who creates a category, or he who identifies a problem that is unaware of, is he who owns that solution. So let me give you a great example of this, using the 2 samples I gave you, and then what I'm actually doing, just so it kind of drives it home. And then maybe we could talk about gym owners who can think about this as well. Cool. But when back in the day, Mike, and you probably remember this, although it doesn't feel like it was that long ago. On the other hand, it feels like it was ages ago. But do you remember that if you ever wanted to watch television outside of professional sports, if you ever wanted to watch television, you had to watch it at Thursday at 7 p.m., your favorite show, and it's 1 episode, and you have to wait for the next week to watch the next thing. But this was our norm. This was what society had. Then a company strolls along and says, you know what that's called, everybody? That's called appointment viewing. And how ridiculous is that? That you actually have to sit and wait for a show to be able to watch it once a week. We believe that everybody should have the ability to watch any show they want, anytime they want, as many hours as they want. Hell, you could binge watch an entire season in one night if you like. And everyone's like, what does that mean? And they created a term called on-demand streaming. Now, what's interesting about Netflix is they didn't promote Netflix. They created a category called on-demand streaming. But because they created the category, they win the category, because now everyone said the solution to on-demand streaming is Netflix. They own the space, and then everybody else came after. There was another company who existed who looked at men's sexual health. And at that time, it was called impotence, but nobody liked to say that they had impotence. Nobody wanted to look for a solution for a problem they didn't want they had. So this company created a term. Get this, Mike. It's not even a legal clinical term, but they came around and said, oh, no, it's not impotence. It's ED. Well, what's ED? Well, erectile dysfunction, but it's called ED. And so everyone's like, oh, well, I'm okay with ED. Doesn't sound so bad. I'm looking for a solution for that. Well, guess what company created that term? Pfizer. Why? Because they had a solution called Viagra, and they needed people to opt into a problem in order for them to sell the solution. So in bringing this home in terms of, like, let's just open up the Pandora's box and tell you about my transparent thing. When I looked out into the world, in the marketing world, everyone had funnels. So I could have came on the scene and said, I've got a better funnel. My funnel's better, faster, quicker, cheaper. And that's what most people do. They go into an industry that's already dominated and they try to be better, faster, cheaper. Now, the thing is, and Sally Hogshead says it great, different is better than better. You don't want to be better, faster, cheaper. You want to be different. So when I started to think about category design and how do I become category of one positioning, I said, well, pardon my language, but I'm like, fuck funnels. Funnels are the worst thing in the world. I identified a problem, a non-obvious problem, and created a non-obvious solution to the problem. And now in my space, I'm technically the only person talking about funnels the way I do. So if anyone in my space hears the message and says, well, maybe you're right. Maybe funnels are slow and they are complex and they attract the wrong prospect. How do I solve that? Who do they come to? Right. So I'm not actually marketing Nicholas Kusmich. I'm marketing the concept anti-funnel.
Right.
And the more people see that, I'm building a category and I'm the king of that category. Now I can own that solution. So I think it's important for gyms and whatnot. If you're talking about muscle gain, you can't just come on the scene and say, well, we can build muscle gain faster than those guys over there and cheaper than those guys over there, because that's a race to the bottom. You need to come up with an angle with a category where it's only you who does it the way you do it. Right. And here's the thing. It doesn't have to even be that fantastical. Like, back in the day, every pizza company had a policy that it was 30 minutes or it was free. Everyone did. But Domino's marketed it and said 30 minutes are free. And everyone's like, what? 30 minutes are free. I'm going to buy from Domino's. Little did they know that every other pizza company did the same thing. They just were loud about it. Right. Same thing. There's banks. There's like 5 major banks here in Canada. Every single bank offers a unlimited checking account, but one bank decided to market it and said, oh, if you bank with us, you get unlimited checking account. Now, again, they took something that was common, but they created a category around it. So everyone's like, oh, if we want unlimited checking, we got to work with them, even though every other bank did it. So if we're talking to gym owners here, even if the other gyms do similar things to what you do, if you can market an element, and I say you either have to market an obvious solution to a non-obvious problem, or a non-obvious problem needs to be solved with an obvious solution. Either one of those, you bring that to the marketplace, and you layer that with the idea of an anti-funnel, you're unstoppable. Like, who is going to compete against you when you have a distinct category and a process that attracts your best prospects? The solution seekers, man, you win every single time.
I agree, man. And, knowing you, I feel like there's gotta be the fact that you've watched this show, Mad Men. You have to have watched Mad Men.
Yeah. Back in the day,
My dog, who's now passed, was named Draper. We named him.
I love it, Donnie Draper. Yeah.
But there's an episode. It's my favorite episode.
Okay.
Working with Lucky Strike cigarettes.
Okay.
And I think it was Surgeon General just announced we have to put on the box, on every box, that this causes cancer. Cigarettes cause cancer. And so every company in the world was wanting to put out all this information of how it's less likely if you do it this way, or, we're not really cancerous, or the data isn't valid, or whatever. Like, everyone was create things that argue with it. And so Don Draper led the marketing meeting with everybody and had the strategy. And he said, okay, walk me through the process of making cigarettes. And he's like, oh, we have to harvest, we have to do this, we have to do this. And one of the things he goes, then we toast it. And he goes, stop. And then he goes up and he writes on the whiteboard, it's toasted. And he goes, what do you mean? Lucky Strike cigarettes, ours are toasted. And he goes, yeah, but everyone's toasting their cigarettes. And he goes, yeah, but if we're the only ones talking about it, we're the only ones doing it. And instead of arguing in the conversation, we're changing the conversation. And they took it away from that to ours are toasted, and they blew up. So
I love that.
Similar, right? Like, he owned the toasted for us. So as an example, Jim, this is a far stretch example because you want to do some thinking on this, but it could be like kettlebell strength, right? Like, this is a strength only developed by kettlebells, right? This is a unique way of using kettlebells, as a crazy weird example that I would think.
No, but that's a great example. Yeah.
Yeah, like, we're the ones that do it this way, and that's why it works so well. Like the guy that you bought from, right? The guy you bought from, he talked about the strength being bigger on the end of the repetition, and therefore that is where we focus, because we believe there's a science to back it up.
Yeah.
Awesome. Okay, so I want to really quickly dive into, before we go into the thing I want to talk to you about, which is
Okay.
psychedelics. We'll kind of put a thing there, a trailer for it. But
Sure.
before that, right now, you got Facebook ads, you got Google ads, you got Instagram ads, you got TikTok ads, you got LinkedIn ads, you got Pinterest, you got mail, direct mail, email. You got a lot of ways that you can get in front of people. And of course,
Yeah.
nothing is static as far everything's circumstantial depending on the industry, the business, your assets, what you have.
Of course.
I want you to imagine, Nicholas, you got a gym and you're planning on having 50 of these things.
Yeah.
Is there a platform that you feel you're going to master before you go on to a next one? Or is there an area that you're like, this is really, I'm going to treat this as if this is the only way I can get leads. I'll do other stuff, but this is going to be a great opportunity. Is there one for you?
Yeah. So you got to keep in mind, I am biased, right? I've been on the Meta platform since 2008. I was one of the first people on that platform, and we've never abandoned ship when everybody else has gone on to the next flavor of the month. But there's reasons why. Like especially in the gym fitness world, like Instagram is dominated by aesthetic, right? Yeah. It is all about aesthetic, and you see the creators on there doing all sorts of fitness-based things. And so like, that's where, if you own a gym, your audience is on Instagram. And whether you figure that out from an organic side or a paid side, I'm a paid ads guy. I just like going faster. Not that I don't like organic. I just like, if I could pay to get a result much faster, let's pay to get a result much faster. Like, yeah, Pinterest, YouTube, all these other things are great, but I would say go where your people are first. Right. And we know that vast majority of people who are in a specific age demographic are definitely on Instagram. And I think that if you could figure out the paid play on Instagram, you would win. But again, this is contingent upon you understanding your category positioning, because there's going to be a lot of people out there on Instagram who says, hey, come to my gym. Well, we got here. Look at what we do at our gym. And if it all looks the same, smells the same, talks the same, acts the same, you're not going to really stand out. But if you could combine the recognition of category one positioning and a platform like Instagram, particularly if you're a gym owner, I think there's no questions asked that that's the easiest platform to make things work and to win on.
Nick, when you drive so much traffic, especially like you do and you do for your clients, how much do you focus on strategy with the email list to essentially squeeze juice out of the lemon you already purchased?
Yeah. Well, and that's a thing. Like, I think you want to look for opportunities that allow you to double or triple dip on your initial efforts. Right. So, for example, what I mean by that is, if you're running Facebook or Instagram ads to a page, you're paying for that traffic anyway. So the early conversions you can get from it, awesome. Hopefully they make a great profit for you and you're winning. But two other assets that you're also building is an email list, most likely if you're doing some sort of lead gen. So now you have an email list that you could do many things with. And I'll tell you two things you could do with that. You're also building retargeting lists. And all that means is anyone who hits a page, you have the ability to retarget those people specifically back to a page. Those are some of your highest ROI pages that you could do. But let's say, again, let's even quadruple dip now. Let's say you have an email list. So you should be emailing that list regularly with promos and offers and value and all sorts of stuff, right? We can talk about that. But here's something that I love to do as well with email. And I call this surround sound campaigns. And surround sound campaigns are simply this. It's like, whenever you send a relevant email to your list, whether it's a promo or a value piece or whatever, well, why not at the exact same time run an ad with that exact same content only to that list? Because if you're looking at email open rates right now, they range anywhere from like 20% on the low end, or if you're really good, 50%. But that means 50% of the people, 50 to 70% or 80% of the people are not seeing your email. But if you take that list and upload it as a custom audience to Meta, and you can send correspondence to them, now people who didn't see the important information in your email are also going to see that information in their newsfeed, whether it's Instagram or Facebook or wherever. So the point here is, if you're going to spend the mighty dollar for the initial transaction to get an eyeball on the thing that you want to sell, well, don't just stop there. Use the email list, right? Use retargeting, use a surround sound campaign, do everything you can to maximize that dollar. Hell, if you're running meta traffic to that site and you're also running Google ads, for example. Now, we don't run Google ads, but let's say you do, you could now retarget on Google people who came from Facebook to your page. Another way to, again, expand the mighty dollar that you've just spent. So I think there's an important strategy to understand. I mean, it's also the same as what we call profit maximizers. So if you're selling, let's say, a gym membership for the sake of it, The easiest way that you could increase revenue is by two things. One is by increasing the average order value of someone who signs up. So the moment someone signs up for a gym membership, let's say that's what you're selling, or personal training or whatever it be, why wouldn't you add a potential order bumper upsell to there? Because that's free money. And the worst case scenario is they say, no, I don't want that extra thing that you just offered. The best case scenario is, yes, I do want it added to my order. And all of a sudden you've increased the average order value, which means you're taking the mighty dollar that you spent to drive that traffic in the first place. And now you're increasing the average order value. Now, let's say someone signs up for a 3-month gym membership, and I don't know why you'd sell them in 3-month slots, but let's say you do. So you've done an order bump and an upsell. Well, why don't you do some sort of an MRR thing, like a membership thing? Or why don't you do something where they can upgrade to something else? I mean, I know a doctor's office, and I'm sure gyms can do this as well. I know a doctor's office who is looking for a way just to increase their revenue without getting more foot traffic into their door, because they were kind of a full practice. So when we were talking to them, they said, well, you've got a really big waiting room. Why don't we build a wall and siphon off a portion of it? And in that other portion of it, let's put really nice lazy boy chairs in there. We'll put some like higher end drinks like Voss water. We'll put a big ass 80-inch television screen. We'll put these like headphones that you could listen to and connect via Bluetooth, and call that the VIP lounge. And for an upgrade of 10 grand a year, you can have access to the VIP lounge versus the regular waiting room when you're waiting for your doctor. Guess what? That thing sold out like this. Why? Because some people just want to sit in business class or first class. Some people want to fly private. Some people only buy designer brands. Like a great example is I bought this new Apple Watch Ultra band. And at first I wanted to cheap out, and I bought a one from Amazon for like $20 because this one was $160 for goodness sake. And then I thought, what the hell am I doing? And so when I got both, I'm like, this is ridiculous. I threw out the old one and I only wear the Apple one, because some people just want premium. Right? The solution seeker. So think about if you were a gym. What if you had a siphoned off waiting room, or a special VIP lounge, or a spot that had the better equipment that only the VIPs could use? This is all simple things that we could do to, again, maximize the initial dollar spent. If you spent the dollar to get the client or to bring them to your site anyways, you need to be thinking as a business owner, how do I extend the average order value, and how do I extend the lifetime value of a client to me? Because again, Jay Abraham, I don't know if he came up with it, but he used to say 3 ways to increase revenue in your business: get more clients, get more of those clients spending more, and get more of those clients spending more often. And so if you could just think about it from that frame, many gyms can increase all they focus on is, how do I get more foot traffic in the door? Right. What if you didn't need to do that, and you could double your revenue just by thinking about like level 2 and level 3? There's so many opportunities for them to do that.
We talk a lot about that here. And with our clients, where the 3 rules, we say get them to stay longer, because getting to buy more often is more for like a one-off purchase, whereas we have MRR businesses, right? But here's a crazy thing about this, Nick, is you're right. Everyone's a blanket term. A lot of people, too many people, focus just too much on get more customers.
Yep.
But the interesting thing about this is, if you focus on getting them to spend more, whether that's by getting them to a better program, which if they're in a better program, that means they're getting better results, right?
Better results.
Very few times that I've ever seen is the better program equal worse results. Get them to buy more things from you, whether it's, supportive of what
equipment, supplements, whatever.
Right. So if you get that, not only are you getting more value per member, which over time is better than more members, but there's studies that show that people that buy more from you and also that get better results are more likely to stay longer, which is the third thing. Now, here's the cool thing. The people that stayed longer, because they buy more from you at the better things, means that the people that are staying longer are the more valuable people anyways. So if we were to just get more people to focus on getting them to spend more with you and getting them to stay longer, you wouldn't care so much about getting more customers. It's always, you always got to focus on that. But I mean, man, imagine if every customer you got now, you knew was going to have a higher lifetime value. You'd be able to spend more to get them. You'd be able to hire better people to focus on it. So I 100% agree, man. I think I love that. I feel like you and I should talk a lot more.
I know it's not enough.
Yeah, but well, let's move away from marketing for one quick hot second for everybody here.
Sure.
One of the things that you're also really into, and I've noticed more and more people, especially the entrepreneurial world, getting into this, which is the world of psychedelics, and
Yes.
understanding how that can impact you. And there's a lot of benefits to it, but I want you to speak on, number one, what is your involvement in it, and also why? Like, what is it that drove you to dive into that a little bit?
I love this question because right now, a lot of the psychedelic world and a lot of the clinical studies from Johns Hopkins University and a lot of other people are seeing the benefit of these types of drugs on fixing deep trauma. Right. So PTSD, people coming back from war. John Hopkins did a great study with psilocybin on people who were given a death sentence, like a cancer death sentence, and saying you've got 6 months to live, put them through an experience, one therapeutic experience. And 96% of the people said they do not longer fear death and they're happy and openly awaiting. And it's not a depressing thing for them anymore. There's studies now that show that drug resistant depression on a lot of people who have even just one ketamine experience takes them away from the depression altogether and resets their default mode network. And a lot of beautiful things happen as a result of that. So there's a lot of study right now that goes into how can we help people with mental issues overcome the mental issues. I never got into that world because of that reason. Right? Because I didn't really have deep mental issues. I didn't really have any deep trauma. I define trauma as micro trauma and macro trauma. I had a bunch of micro trauma in my life, the little things that happened, but I've never had a really big macro trauma that needed deep healing. So what I was looking at was like, from as long as I can remember, I was, for the lack of a better term, a personal development junkie. It's just like, how can I be a better version of myself? How can I show up better as a husband? How can I show up better as a business owner for my clients? How can I just show up into the world in the fullest expression of who I am? And I took courses and did all that and whatnot. And then back in 2017 or 18, I was introduced to this idea of therapeutic psychedelics. And all that means is, it's in a clinical setting with a registered facilitator, and you have a very specific protocol that you use. So you're not going out clubbing at a rave, taking some drugs and being like, woo, life is good. That is recreational use. I don't promote that. I don't say that that's, if that's what you do, then great, but that's not what I do. But I had my first therapeutic psychedelic experience with a molecule that broke me open and showed me realities. And I'm not talking about like weird realities, but showed me areas in my life that needed some work, that showed me how I can be better. And that thing just kind of led to this rabbit hole of experiences where, to this day, and I don't recommend anyone do this per se, this is just my experience, but to this day, I think we have had, and we being my wife and I, have experimented with 8, 9, or 10 different molecules, and multiple times in those molecules at different settings with different clinicians at different doses, just to see, because to me, at the end of the day, they are tools. But at the end of the day, it became so important to me in my life advancement and what it did for myself and my family that both my wife and I got certified to be facilitators in some of these molecules. And right now we work particularly with a molecule that's part of a program that we've developed for kind of higher level, apex kind of entrepreneur style people who are looking to get the most out of their life. And it's just been fascinating. So right now, every Friday, we host one-day experiences here in our home for 2 people at a time. And the demand is crazy. Literally every Friday, we dedicate this time to do this. And then once a quarter, we have a multi-day retreat where we invite up to 10 people to have an experience with us and move through it. But it's just been an incredible eye-opening experience that I'm super passionate about, because marketing is great for me and I can do some great things in the world for people. But when I can see marriages saved, when I can see people who have been struggling with things come out the other end, when I see people get a revelation of who they can be and how they can show up to their family as a result of some of the work that's involved with this, I feel like that's my contribution, my impact statement that I can make to the world. So I'm happy to dive into any bits of those, but that's kind of the history and how we got here.
That's so cool, man. And what is the molecule that you specifically like working with?
Yeah, so we specifically work with a molecule called 5-MeO. I specifically say 5-MeO. The full term is 5-MeO-DMT, but oftentimes people mistaken that as NN-DMT, which is the active compound in ayahuasca. That is not it. 5-MeO is known as an entheogen, which basically means it's not a traditional psychedelic in that you don't have some mad visions around it. What 5-MeO does, and the best way I could describe this is, we live in a world of duality. So there's me and you, Mike, we're having a conversation. There's me and God, if we believe in a higher source. There's happy, sad, positive, negative, up, down. There's just duality everywhere. And what 5-MeO does for a brief moment in time when you have the experience is it takes you from duality into a non-dual state. where there is no up down, there is no me, you, there is no God and us, there's no happy, sad, there's no positive or negative. There is just it. And when you're there, you realize that that is you. And it is a phenomenal mind fuck, for a better word. When you can experience a non-dual state, it changes your perspective of everything to do with life and who we are and how we operate.
What's an example? Like, what do you look at differently? What changes going forward that you can't unsee now?
Yeah. So I wish there's words to describe it. There's those things that people who go through the experience, you just look at them in the eyes and like, and like, yeah, I know, I was there. But here's the thing. When you get to a place where you recognize that we're all interconnected, that source, however you want to describe that, God, energy, universal consciousness, the quantum field, whatever you want to say, that we are in that time is to a certain degree an illusion, that we're living here temporarily in human meat sacks that go through the world. Like when you just understand that source and non-duality is really nothing but love, and we're a part of that and interconnected, it just has you see the world differently. You interact with humans differently, you interact with your children differently, you have a lot more forgiveness for yourself and appreciation. You can look at the world and be like, damn, there's some pretty unfortunate things going on, like the wars and this and that. But instead of taking a negative, dark approach to that, like, fuck everybody, what the hell is going on? Like you come with a new state of compassion and awareness. There's a lot of very interesting things that happen. But the other two things that I might just add about 5-MeO, unlike other experiences, is one, it's also a very somatic experience. And I think what people don't recognize is that when we have macro and micro traumas that we experience in our life, it affects two parts of us. One is our mind, but the other part is our body. There's a great book written that says the body keeps the score. And it's this reality that when we go through things, sometimes our body holds on to these traumatic experiences. And so when we can go through therapy or whatever people do to relieve that, our mind kind of gets freed up from it, but our body still holds on to it. And it's like this debilitating thing. So a great way to see it is like software and hardware. Like our body is a hardware, our software is our mind, and then there's an architectural blueprint that says this is who we could be at our fullest potential, et cetera. But sometimes, and I don't know if you remember back in the Windows days where you had to go like defrag your computer because all the software was a little glitchy. Sometimes life happens, and sometimes that kind of like fragments a bit of the software and something happens, or we had a terrible experience, or we lost a business, or we lost a friend, or whatever it be. A little bit of a glitch happens in the software. And so the software is always trying to align with the blueprint, and the hardware is as well. But because of these slight defrags, we can't quite get there. And there's tools like psychedelics that allow us to defrag those elements and bring us back into alignment with our blueprint to allow us to an easier path to get there. And so somatically, what 5 allows us to do is shake off a lot of things that were held in our body. And the other great part, and then I'll stop talking about it, is everyone's familiar now with neuroplasticity, like the ability to reprogram neurological bridges that are in our mind. And generally our mind is plastic. It's movable. It's fallible. And so when we go through life experiences, we start to build these synapses that create who we are, these patterns and these default responses of how we respond in the world. Now, the good thing about that is that's our subconscious. We don't think about it. It just kind of happens. The bad thing is if some of those programs are not serving us, but they're harming us, then we are really benefited from reprogramming those things. And so post 5-MeO experience, science has showed that our brain gets plastic again, and we have an opportunity for 7 to 21 days after the experience to reestablish new patterns based on the new choices that we make based on the experiences that happen. And so you literally have the opportunity to rewire your brain into a much better pattern that serves you rather than harms you, which then again sets the stage for some pretty amazing things as you move forward and in and out through the world.
Wow. So basically making it easier to reset, to maybe establish some new habits, maybe crush some bad habits, which is hard for a lot of people. So
yeah, and it's not like it can only happen through these tools like these molecules, but to me, like I'm like you, we're business owners, we like shortcuts to things. I mean, if it's 20 years of therapy or 10 years in a Zen Buddhist temple to like really be able to get there, or like 10 minutes on with a psychedelic, I'll just go that route because it's faster and easier.
10 minutes is quick like that.
Well, the 5-MeO experience, unlike traditional psychedelics, right? So a typical psilocybin mushroom experience is 4 to 6 hours. A typical MDMA experience is similar to that. An LSD experience is generally up to 10 hours. A ayahuasca experience is 8 hours of you puking in a bucket. A 5-MeO experience is generally in and out of your body. Your body fully metabolizes it anywhere from 20 to 40 minutes.
Wow. So you're done before an episode of Breaking Bad is complete. You're done.
And it's so that's another reason why I like it. You're in and out because, like, I'll be honest with you, I've had some psilocybin experiences and some other experiences where I kind of say you're done with the molecule before it's ever done with you. You know, you're like, I'm done, man. Just okay, let me out. But there's no fast way out. You just got to sit through it until it's done. A 5-MeO experience, granted, it is the most or one of the most powerful and potent psychedelics in the world. It's 10 times stronger than ayahuasca. Just to give you an example, like, it's no joke. It's a big, deep experience.
Stronger, and you're not puking in buckets.
No, thankful. And so here's the other thing about ayahuasca that I just want to say, and I don't want to talk bad about it because I love DMT as a molecule, and DMT is the active compound in ayahuasca that gives you the spiritual experiences. In fact, the nickname for DMT is the spirit molecule. The nickname for 5-MeO is the God molecule. I think those are very appropriately named because DMT brings you into the spirit world. 5-MeO makes you one with God. But yeah, the thing with Aya that people don't get is the reason why you're puking in buckets. Many people think that that's just purging, like it's part of you letting go of bad shit in your life,
right?
Which is fine if you want to believe that. But the reality is that the human body biologically cannot digest the ayahuasca bark.
Oh, really?
That's why we puke. It's because the body can't digest it. So it's either bad nausea or you're puking for a while. Some people can get through the experience without it because they have some pretty incredible guts that can like withstand it. But yeah, the ayahuasca is actually the name of the bark, which is a liver inhibitor that allows your body to slowly break down DMT versus quickly. But that bark is very hard on your gut, and 8 times out of 10, people end up puking it out because it's you just can't digest it. So, I mean, as much as people call it a purge.
Yeah, I thought it was because the experience was so intense, people can't handle, all the things that are happening, but they just can't. I mean, it's equivalent to eating anything else that your body can't digest.
Well, and mushrooms are the same way. Like 60% of the population, if you were to consume psilocybin, have a hard time digesting it, which is why a lot of people get a lot of nausea. They don't throw up as much on psilocybin, but they get a lot of nausea. So you got to counterbalance that. When we do ceremonial experiences with psilocybin, we either include ginger or some sort of an anti-nauseant to be able to like allow you to focus on the experience you're having instead of focusing on like, oh God, I need to vomit. Where's the bucket? So like, again, I think if people just understood some of that, but anyways, all that to say, every molecule to me is a tool and it has its place in the spectrum of people to have experiences. But once we found 5-MeO, it was a game changer for us and everybody we've worked with in the process.
I love it. Well, Nick, or anything you want people to kind of get more in touch with you on and follow more on as you're going through, a few different awesome journeys in life. Where do you want them to learn more, follow, in order to kind of keep up with you?
Yeah, I love that. So without complicating it, fortunately or unfortunately, I'm the only Nicholas Kusmich in the world, which is great if you know how to spell my name. But if you don't, then it's a pain in the ass. But all my social channels are Nicholas Kusmich. We have a weekly newsletter that goes out every Thursday. If you want to kind of be in touch with the latest and greatest marketing information that's going out there, nicholaskusmich.co. So .co, nicholaskusmich.co. You can sign up for the newsletter. You get a free copy of my book, Give, that I'm happy to give you when you do that. Or if you say, hey, man, I'm just like, it was great hearing what you had to say about funnels and this and that and the other. I just want to talk to you about seeing if that can work for us. In that case, nkcall.com. So Nicholas Kusmich, nkcall.com. Happy to hop on the phone and discuss anything with anybody that has anything to do with that. But yeah, if you want to follow me on IG and DM me about, hey, let's talk about some psychedelic stuff too. Happy to do that as well. So whichever way it goes, there's easy ways to get in contact with us.
I love it. So I can literally say the one and only Nicholas Kusmich, because literally you're the only.
the one and only, without exaggeration. Yeah.
That is awesome. Well, to the one and only Nicholas Kusmich, thank you so much for coming in and sharing so much with our community and everyone that listens in, watches the channel. And for everybody that was tuned in, thank you so much. And we'll see you next time.